Yeah, it turns out you can't do that. So they're like, okay, we're not going to do infraction. We're like, okay, they keep saying it's not a homeless court, it's not a homeless court. So we challenged them on it. We said it's not a homeless court. Take out the 7 to 9 misdemeanors that are in the docket that are for sleeping and camping and for panhandling and these kinds of things that directly impact poor folks, and let's see what happens. Silence. They won't do it. The mayor's office won't take it out. The judges running this court won't take it out. The downtown folks would agree to taking it out. Nobody would agree to taking that out. Yet they still do the rhetoric, it's not about homeless people. Well, if it's not about homeless people, why are they so insistent on having these in? And I'll tell you why. Because they're planning on, instead of giving homeless people infractions, they're going to start giving them misdemeanors. And the recommendation actually came out in writing from the mayor's office through their San Francisco Streets and Neighborhoods group, and they pushed and pushed on it that they wanted folks who are sleeping and camping in the Tenderloin area to get misdemeanors. What's the difference between a misdemeanor and an infraction? Well, it's jail time, okay? An infraction is a fine. A misdemeanor is jail time. So what they're really saying is, we want to put people who are too poor to afford a place to live in jail. And that's what they're saying. So behind all the bullshit, all the rhetoric is what the real plan is. And so that's why we're opposing this. It is also another little small problem. The Board of Supervisors already funded it. And if this thing passes, it's not going to allow any kind of legislative input on how the court is run. It gives the mayor full authority to do whatever he wants. He wants to, let's say, expand it. He can expand it, have these more courts all over the city. If we want to take out these misdemeanor camping and sleeping, we won't be able to. Any kind of changes, any kind of failures with this little experiment, you know, they love to experiment with poor people and then run for office on it. We're not going to be able to change any of that. So beyond all the rhetoric, we also have what is basically, once again, petty politics, where homeless people are ending up paying the price. And so this little thing that's going on is really about trying to get the Tenderloin into another, trying to get the visibility of poor people off the streets of the Tenderloin, get them out of this area. They've got major claims on this neighborhood in terms of gentrification. You should see how the downtown folks are talking about the Tenderloin. It's amazing. They are all focused on the Tenderloin. So, yeah, so this is something we're going to have to stop. I want to give it up to Poor Magazine for organizing this press conference. Woo! Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. I also just want to say that Poor Magazine even goes further on that in the sense that, interestingly enough, he's including this notion of graffiti. Graffiti is an art form. It's also an art form by silenced youth scholars that's criminalized, that carries a $420 fine and a first strike offense. And this court will institutionalize the criminalization of youth as well as adults. So I just want to keep that notion here. Welcome to the prison industrial complex in a neighborhood near you. Next up, I'm going to ask Lori McElroy, poverty race scholar at board member at Poor Magazine.
Woo! What's up? Hey, how you doing? Freezing out here. Okay, so I'm going to read a little from our press statement, from Poor Magazine's press statement. It is a crime to be poor in the U.S. Sleeping outside or in a vehicle, soliciting employment, convening in a public space, and or suffering in public from a mental illness are citable offenses. This results in more and more poor families, youth, elders, and adults in this country facing police harassment, abuse, and even incarceration for living in poverty. Proposition L's CJC Poverty Court will use $2.5 million of a cash-strapped city budget adjudicating crimes of poverty. The San Francisco version of the court would need at least 4 to 8 new deputies, a judge, a sheriff, transportation to and from jail, a court reporter, and of course, a lease on an expensive new building. All within walking distance of the existing courthouse at 850 Bryant.
Yeah, hello.
And on top of the many specialized courts and underutilized community courts that already exist. Like poor laws in 16th century England, like apartheid in South Africa, Palestine, and the American South. Poverty courts are about control and profit. They're not about justice. $2.5 million are spent to funnel in people into compelled services when compelled services don't work. It's getting colder right now. People are being turned away from shelters and shelters are closing. The major food banks, the local food banks have been faced with defunding. How is this going to help? All right.